Necromunda Hide Gun. Firstly, it's an indie game. Secondly, developed by Stream On Studios, and published by Focus Home Interactive. It is a Doom-like game in the sense of it is an arena shooter with fast-paced action, a lot of movement, where you constantly have to kill enemies in an arena before moving on to the next arena. You get various guns from the Warhammer 40k universe. You get bolters, you get plasma guns, plasma rifles, plasma pistols, grenade launchers. I think there was a grenade launcher. Anyway, it's a good time. And for the low price of $33.33 on Steam right now, I would recommend picking it up if you're a fan of either arena shooters or Doom, or for that matter, anything in the Warhammer franchise, because this game is amazing at immersing you in the world. When you load in for the first time, you're like, oh, the cinematic looks juicy. The cinematic looks Warhammery. Oh, what's that over there? A pile of skulls? Oh, is that a tech priest dangling from a cable? Ooh, I'm invested now. If you are a fan of the Warhammer 40k universe, this game does incredibly good world building for Necromunda specifically. And the other thing it does really well in the sense of Necromunda is the vertical scale. As you'll see in the gameplay footage in the background, which is from the first mission on lower settings, you'll see me tweaking settings throughout the game, which I will get to in a little bit. Game is incredibly fun to play. It is fast-paced action shooter nonsense where you can just put on some good music or turn up the game's music because it's incredible, and then just chill and slaughter hordes and hordes and hordes of enemies. Now, speaking of hordes of enemies, one of the game's downsides is the lack of enemy variety. Now, I know it's hard to add enemy variety into games. I mean, there's only so many archetypes you can have. You can have the tanky one, you can have the summoner one, you can have the fast one, you can have the medium speed one, you can have the bigger tanky one, and you can have like the tanky fast-paced one, which is normally a boss. Like, I get it, but the reason I have an issue with enemy variety in this is the game gives you an assortment of ways you can customize and craft weapons, gives you an assortment of skills and trinkets and things that do interesting things with your characters, and as you play you just slowly start to realize that all you need is a grappling hook, a good wall run, and enough ammunition to kill whatever's in front of you. I feel like Doom, obviously AAA, monstrous, popular, polished god tier game, has a monstrous team behind it as well, and they can turn every combat interaction into a 3D game of chess with guns, and I appreciate that. I just really wish that Necromunda Hide Gun had the same ability here. Necromunda Hide Gun is an incredibly fun game, but it does lack the polish, it does lack the variety, it does lack the combat puzzles, which is, if this game had better combat puzzles and the performance and all the things like that was ironed out a bit more, I would in a heartbeat recommend this game to literally anyone. But right now I think I could only recommend it to Doom fans or Warhammer 40k fans. But let's touch on some of the performance problems. Every time the game renders in new enemies, or a door opens that you might need to go through later on that the enemies are moving through now, or anything in the arena drastically changes, there'll be a stutter. It's 1 or 2 frames that will half your frames for those 2 frames. But the problem is, this game is momentum based. Like in Doom, slamming that skull, getting that ammo, dashing to the next body, lobbing that grenade at the enemy, ripping off that arm and stabbing it into that guy. It's momentum based. Any little thing that messes with your momentum, you pick up instantly when you're playing. And that is what these little stutters do. Now, I, by no stretch of the imagination, have a monstrous PC. I really don't. And I was recording and I was playing on high, and you could really every now and then see those stutters. Like when you're in the arena itself and it doesn't need to render anything, the gameplay is smooth. But as soon as there's one little thing that needs to be added, or there's a specific attack coming from behind, I noticed with some of the dogs and things like that, the game stutters for a split second, and it's really frustrating. You could play it like that 100%, no doubt about it in my mind. It is just really frustrating when things like that happen in a game that's this fun. And I have seen reports of people with higher end PCs that also still have these problems, especially some people who are trying to run it at 4K. It really picks up the stutters on 3080s and 3090s and things like that, which is concerning. It is something that can 100% be patched out, definitely, so maybe wait a bit and check in few patches down the line and maybe pick up the game on a special or something like that if you're not all that interested in it now. But if you are interested in it now and you do fall into two of those categories, such as Warhammer or Doom fan, I could honestly recommend you picking up this game right now. It's only $33 on Steam. In dollars, of course. Now, let's touch on one of the most shocking parts of this game for me, honestly. I'm fiddling with my mic here, sorry. One of the best parts for me was loading into the game and hearing that insane guitar solo just kick in, and these fast drum beats, and the music is honestly awesome. I'm really enjoying just listening to the game soundtrack as I play, and I was quite shocked. The reason it kind of caught me off guard is because normally the Warhammer 40k games have more orchestral and operatic and choir qualities, a holier than thou sort of attitude in the music department, and I love it. But when this game came in with more of a leaning towards Doom soundtrack with a fast-paced gameplay while still keeping the heavy riffs and things like that does make you feel like you're in a Warhammer 40k world, I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, it was really fun. And then something else I want to touch on is just the incredible world design. I think there are 12 levels. I still haven't finished the game, but I do know what happens in the end story-wise, and it's also quite disappointing. But let's just touch on the world for now. Each level looks different. Each level seems handcrafted. There's a few things that are a bit copy-pasty, but I don't judge them. I would have copied and pasted as well. And all the environments are so Warhammer 40k. From, like I said, piles of skulls, statues of what I would assume is some high priest or some god emperor knockoff, and just all of the emblems everywhere, dead Ogren lying on the floor. It just feels Warhammer, and it really feels awesome to be running around that world, first person, fast paced. It was a really fun time. I really enjoyed it. And then moving on from the world and more to Necromunda. Necromunda is a spin-off 40k game that has a lot more verticality in the board game. If you're, well, not the board game, the tabletop. And if you're familiar with that, you will definitely notice it in this game. This game makes absolutely amazing use of the verticality. The levels that you'll see in the gameplay footage in the back, I'm not used to it yet, so I'm like running somewhere. I'm like, where the hell am I supposed to go? And I look up and I'm like, oh, there's a blinking green light over there. And I like double jump, grapple on something. I'm like, ooh, I can go up here. This is awesome. And like the levels progress vertically, and that's amazing. A lot of other arena shooters do make use of vertical arenas or more verticality in their arenas. But this game honestly feels like it pushes towards that. It really tried to corner that, and I appreciate it, and it's really awesome. And it just makes you a bit more immersed in this world. It really gives you that sense of Warhammer 40k scale. You're just this insignificant speck in this absolutely atrocious world, and no matter what you really do, you're not going to make much of a difference. You're just this madman driven by revenge trying to kill everyone, and it sells it, man. The sense of scale when you're in these factories and these smelters and things, it just makes you feel small and insignificant in this absolutely gargantuan Warhammer 40k world. It really does sell it. It really does immerse you in it. And man, that's awesome. Now, the biggest points I want to touch on here is kind of like my closing thoughts in this little ramble we're having. Is it's got essentially 6s across the board from users and critics and reviewers and things like that. And I do agree. It is a solid 6. For the price it's on, for an indie game, for the content you get, definitely say it's worth it if you want to get into it. It's a good time. You can play for 2 hours and refund it if you don't like it. And I really enjoyed my time with it. But if this game's performance was sorted out, the graphics was a bit better. Some of the textures, when you slow down and you look at them, because I was fiddling with settings to try and figure out if the stutter might be one of the settings or one of my graphic settings or something, you do really start to notice that some of the textures are not that great. while you're running around in the world. They look amazing because you're not looking at them. You're just seeing, oh, shiny, oh, beautiful, oh, pretty, as you're flying past everything and spraying down heads and trying to figure out where to jump to. But as soon as you slow down, you look at the textures, you're like, is this actually just a cardboard box with a smiley face drawn on it? And you're like, oh, yes. It isn't a piece of beautiful metal that's shining in the sunlight. It's just a box painted grey with some highlights sprayed on. And that's cool. It's an indie game. I ain't mad. But what I'm saying is, if these things were polished, if the gameplay itself, the moment-to-moment gunfights, had a bit more of a puzzle, like Doom has, and if the performance was ironed out, the random stats didn't happen that often, and then finally, if the story, which is just for interest's sake, for those curious, is just essentially you get betrayed and you seek revenge, and that's pretty much it, and you just murder thousands and thousands of people. And if the story was a bit better, graphics was better. I'm not a stickler for graphics that much, in all honesty. The game looks pretty good with the way that they do the lighting, hides a lot of it. And then just the performance issues. This game could easily have been an 8 or a 9 out of 10. I'm really looking forward to whatever future content they announce, if they do. I'm curious to see how the game does sales and success wise. And I'm also really curious to see if they make a Necromunda Hired Gun 2 or Hired Guns or something. And I do think this game would have been quite fun if it was multiplayer. I know some of these studios' previous games, like Space Wing Death Hulk, it didn't work out that well, and that was mainly focused on multiplayer aspects. But I do feel like if I had one friend in this, none of these issues would have bothered me. I would have had a blast for 10 hours, and it would have been amazing. But anyways, guys, that is my ramble. I know I do still look a bit like a hobo, beard and long ass hair and all included. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I do appreciate it. Hit that like button, like it is your meat on a lonely Saturday night. And let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let's get a conversation going. Do you hate my review? Do you agree? Did you want your money back? And check out the rest of the channel. If you enjoyed it, hit see there. Hit subscribe. And I'll catch all of you in the next episode. Cheers.